All right, everyone, it's gone 6 o'clock, so we will open the ordinary meeting of Council for the 12th of February. Nala Kadich Wajak Mort Kayan Kadak Nija Walilap Buja, Wajanang Wajak Kadajan, Wenyiting Bula Yeye. We acknowledge the Wajak people as the traditional owners of the Greater Fremantle Walilap area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. Welcome here tonight. The meeting is being recorded and also streamed live online. So while all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public who submit a question or speak may be captured in the recording. Apologies, attendances, leave of absence. We have Councillor Graham and Councillor Van Dawson both on leave of absence tonight. We have just received an apology from Councillor Lang, and we have a application for leave of absence, I believe, from Councillor Kamada from the 1st to the 15th of May. So I'll ask that someone moves that. Councillor Mofflin, seconded by Councillor Williamson-Wong. All those in favour? And that's accepted. Do we have any other applications for leave of absence? Nope. All right. Do we have any disclosures of interest by members in relation to tonight's agenda? Nope. The agenda contains responses to questions that were taken on notice at the last meeting of Council on the 29th of January. This is a meeting primarily focused on planning matters. So what we often do with that is we take the questions or comments prior to that particular item, and that also allows us to engage with the people who are speaking if we've got any questions. So if it's your preference, you're also welcome to speak in general question time, which is now, if you'd prefer not to hang around for that item. I have one general question listed, which we'll go to in a minute, and then I'll ask if there's anyone on the planning items who would prefer to speak now in general question time. So the general question I have listed is from Elizabeth Megros. Elizabeth, you know the drill. You've got 3 minutes to speak, and you'll hear a little alarm sound.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm a ratepayer in South Fremantle. I refer to the elected members' conduct in relation to the Local Government Act and its regulations and transparency in general, and I have the AGM in mind of last week. But first, at the AGM on December 12 in 2016, almost 10 years ago, the then elected members, including the Mayor Pettit, voted on a no confidence motion, despite electors protesting that they cannot do both roles at the same time, that is, being a resident and holding the office. I wrote an email seeking clarification from all the elected members, and I received one response from the Deputy Mayor Ingrid Walton that there were no standing orders in place that precluded elected members to vote in their capacity as residents. This response was in contradiction to the advice provided by the local government hotline. Last year, the AGM 2024 included 44 questions, 21 general questions, and 13 motions from electors. The annual report was not accepted for the 4th time. There was a no confidence motion in Mayor Fitzhardinge. All the above was voted within an en bloc motion of unrelated matters by all elected members. That is, without any verbal or visual reference to the item on the screen or otherwise, other than includes 19. Clarify whether elected members need to know the Local Government Act and regulations and need to conduct themselves accordingly. What are the consequences for not doing so? Clarify the meaning of 5.331 of the local government. All decisions made at an electors' meeting are to be considered. Clarify whether considering decisions equates en bloc voting for them according to some officer's recommendation. Given that electors were present till after 9 p.m. to hear the considerations of the decisions of the AGM 2024, to then find they were presented with an en bloc voting process, is this course of events an example of the city's vision statements of including, respecting and celebrating their ratepayers? And lastly, describe the Council's working relationship with reference to all aspects regarding the Senior Citizen of the Year blogger Raul Lupus. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take a large part of that as a statement, and we have answered the things in relation to en bloc voting previously, and the motions from the AGM of electors will be coming to the next council meeting this month, I believe. Thank you. All right. Are there any other people in the public gallery who would prefer to ask their questions or make their statements now in general business? Yep. Feel free to come up one at a time, and if you could just state your name, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Claire. I would like to express my objection to the change of land use at 40 Macomb Avenue in Sampson.
Thanks, Claire. And anyone else?
Hello, my name's Jan. I've been a resident of Sampson since 1988.
Jan, could I ask you to get a little bit closer to the microphone, or to bring the microphone closer to you?
Sorry,
you.
I'm a bit short. Is that better?
Great, that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Jan. I've been a resident of Sampson since 1988. I protest against the changing the Fremantle shops to a zone for childcare. If this happens, we will lose any shop possibility in Sampson. We'll probably be the only suburb in city of Fremantle without shopping facilities. Our town, our suburb, is surrounded by the 4 main roads: South Street, North Lake Road, Winterfold Road and Stock Road. And you can't expect kids to go down to the shop crossing such busy roads. I just wonder, has a thorough traffic management study been done on the area, or was it just a quick one? Anyway, I just protest with all my heart and soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Anyone else for general business, or otherwise I can call again before the item? Yep, come on up.
I'm Ian Digney, and I've lived in the Sampson areas again since 1988. It's just under 40 years. We're being screwed over. We really are. We have a party who purchased and demolished our little shopping centre with the promise of a multi-storey accommodation which included shops below. A development that downgraded the previous setup, but shops nevertheless. It is a cop-out if this council allows them to rezone the site, all because they failed in their promise to deliver shops.
Okay, thank you, Ian.
Hi, my name's Sam Thornton. I'm also a resident of Sampson, objecting to the daycare centre at 40 Macomb Avenue. Me and my wife have owned our house in Sampson for the past 3 years. I have a master's degree in architecture and have worked in the field for over 12 years in places such as America, UK, Germany. I now have a master's degree in teaching, secondary schooling, majoring in humanities and social sciences, vocational education training, and have been working in education for over the past 2 years now. As a student and keen observer of sociology, anthropology, history and philosophy, I am very concerned by the state of our society and the rapid decline we face with the coming challenges with technology, AI, etc. It is a very serious and pivotal time we live in where our decisions today will be remembered and recognised further down the line. It is a time where we need to encourage more social interactions, and the site in question is the only possibility to create a vibrant hub in the community of Samson. I totally understand the desire for a childcare centre. I genuinely joke with my friends that instead of investing in Bitcoin, we should all invest in a daycare centre, and then in 10 years, when no one's having babies, we can turn it into an old care home. I don't say this joke or statement lightly. It is a trajectory we are heading towards without serious intervention. Funnily enough, me and my wife will be the biggest short-term beneficiaries of a daycare centre. We're starting on the family journey now. However, it adds little value to the community or surrounding area. Samson is a unique community, and it is luckily protected by subdividing laws and is home to one of Perth's most incredible and beautiful natural parks. The site in question could supplement this with something in the area similar to what they have in Willagee, with a library, a little community centre, cafes. We need something like that, especially as the previous people have said. Samson is surrounded by massive corporations, McDonald's, Red Roosters, Debo's, Woolworths. These are not local, and they certainly should not have a place in our communities. I understand how the planning process works, and that you have all probably made your decisions already. However, with a last little push from my wife and a dog to get me up here, I stand before you saying we can do better than a daycare centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other speakers? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity. My name is Richard. I am a ratepayer in the suburb of Samson, have been so since 1996 and have been a resident since 1990. So I've seen the history that Samson has and the community that it was. That has absolutely been destroyed, and as has been said before, this is the only, and I repeat, the only parcel of land that can be used for the community. It was stated that we're surrounded by heavy roads. Just to emphasise, one of those is State Route number 5, renowned as the heaviest load of traffic. The other, the heaviest load of traffic, and also National Route number 1. So we're not talking about busy roads, we're talking about major roads. And to expect children to cross those roads is frankly obscene. And the only exits from the suburb of Samson are 2 exits onto major roads on the north and south, or a little rat run that you can do through the suburb of Cardinia to come out at Gilbertson. So there are 2.5/3 exits by car. You're looking at having all your road planning measures so that you're trying to reduce the impact of vehicles, to slow vehicles down, and yet by allowing a childcare centre, all that you're going to be doing is increasing the traffic flow and forcing the residents of Samson to drive every single time they want so much as a litre of milk. As I said, I object incredibly strongly to this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. I've got a couple of other people listed to speak on this item. We will probably bring this item to the first item on the agenda, because obviously we've got a few people here who probably want to hear the debate. So I can come back to the 2 people I've got listed, Anton and Carlo, at that point, and that allows elected members to interact with them as well. All right, let's carry on then. Petitions, deputations and presentations. I haven't been given notice of any. Do any elected members have any? No. So we'll confirm the minutes. Do I have a mover for confirming the minutes of the last meeting of council? Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Lorver. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Is there any elected member communication? I have one item, but if there are any other items, Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I just thought I would provide a record. People who are interested may know that yesterday I attended the Court of Disputed Returns to hear the decision of Magistrate Darge in relation to a complaint of the 2023 local government elections and the validity of such elections. I guess the update is that the decision was that both complaints were dismissed. Ultimately, Magistrate Darge found that while the error of the Commission in swapping the ballots was momentous, he was not satisfied that the electorate was disenfranchised or that the result of the error was so great that there was no election at all. I think, importantly, Magistrate Darge found there was no evidence of fraud, but rather it was an administrative, regrettable and embarrassing error by the WAEC. I guess also to note that this process has also been a great legal learning experience for me, and I'm very proud of having self-represented during the hearing and for the evidence of many of the candidates' efforts during that election to be noted by Magistrate Darge as considered. So now that I can officially say I was validly elected, I'm excited to focus my attention fully on my role and continue working as a councillor as I have been doing for the last 15 or so months now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson-Wong. All right, I wanted to take a moment tonight to share a letter that I've written to a very well-known person in Fremantle, Mr. Nunzio Gumina. And I'll read the letter and I might add a couple of my own thoughts, and I think another elected member or two might do the same. Caro Nunzio, please accept this letter on behalf of the City of Fremantle and the community we represent to congratulate you on an incredible career in the hospitality industry and the impact you've had on Fremantle, in particular your formative influence on the creation of the Cappuccino Strip and contribution to our identity as a creative, culturally rich hospitality destination. Since you opened Papa Luigi's in 1977 and introduced to Western Australia the concept of alfresco dining, the Cappuccino Strip has gone from strength to strength, as has Fremantle's reputation, as a destination for delicious food, great coffee and a unique atmosphere. Over the years, as a community, we have been fortunate to enjoy many other cafes and restaurants under your care, each one reflecting the Italian heritage and culture that we love about our city, as well as your commitment to quality customer service. We would also like to acknowledge that not only did your venues provide welcoming, inviting and inclusive places for the community to enjoy, they also served to showcase the work of local Fremantle artists who were able to display and sell their artwork from your walls. This example of community spirit is such an integral part of the Fremantle culture, and we are incredibly grateful for your personal contribution to upholding the value of artistic expression. I go on to say that we recognised him at council tonight. Thank you again for your contribution to Fremantle, and we wish you all the very best for your retirement. So, as many people will know, Nunzio's latest restaurant, Nunzio's, closes its doors today, this week, today. So that is the end of an era for an incredible contributor to the cultural fabric of Fremantle. My earliest memories are of Fremantle through the lens of Papa Luigi's. As a resident of Victoria Park up to the age of 6, my mum used to bring me down here and we would go to Papa Luigi's where she could get a proper coffee, and I'd eat the foam off the top and wonder about what was going on in that back room, which I couldn't go into. All sorts of exciting things happened in that place. I remember really strongly the cappuccino wave. I would love to find a photograph of it. It's probably a challenge to Nunzio, that the artist Sam Abercrombie painted on the wall. It was a huge wave of cappuccino foam breaking over a whole series of Fremantle identities who you could recognise through their faces. So it was a place that holds everyone's memories, and of course through all the other hospitality endeavours that Nunzio's had over the years. I think many a celebration for all of Fremantle's families have been had in those places. So I want to acknowledge Nunzio on behalf of our city and on behalf of the council, and I think Councillor Kamada wanted to probably add a few words to that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Fitzharding, and I think this is a lovely gesture from the City of Fremantle, and something that Nunzio certainly deserves for his contribution to alfresco dining in Fremantle, and starting really what is now known as the Cappuccino Strip by putting a few tables and chairs outside of Papa's back in 1977, I think it was. And as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, Papa Luigi's was certainly a mainstay of the Fremantle scene. And there was always something going on there, whether it was what was going on in the back. He had a restaurant down the bottom for a little while. Then he opened New Papa's, which became Miss Maud's later on. He was certainly a passionate man, and he was always having a go, and I think that's what I admire most about him. So he's also provided many other experiences around Fremantle, culminating in Nuncio's, which is sadly closing, whether it's tonight or very soon anyway. By the weekend, I think it'll be closed. So yeah, I'd just like to wish Nuncio all the best for the future and thank him for sharing his passion with the people of Fremantle and the wider community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamada. All right, I think that probably brings us to the end of elected member communication, in case there's anything else. Nope. Okay, so as I said, we'll bring the Macomb Avenue item forward and then we'll return to the agenda order. So we'll go to Montreal Street second. So we've got an officer's recommendation, we've got an alternative motion on the table. Councillor Lorber,
Yeah, can I move the alternate recommendation first, please?
do we have a seconder for that? Yep, Councillor Kamada. All right, did you wish to open on that? Oh, speakers. I can hear like quiet voices in the corner of my ear. You need to like hit me. So we'll suspend that for a moment and we'll go to the remaining two speakers. I knew I was going to do this too. So Anton Kushrepa and Carlo Famiano. Not sure if you're together and have a particular order, but yeah. Sure.
Good evening, councillors and elected members. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present our proposal for the development of a childcare centre on this long time vacant site. For over 8 years, this land has remained undeveloped, and during that time, we've carefully evaluated all the possible options available and firmly believe that the childcare centre is the most viable and beneficial use for that site. Market studies have identified a clear demand for additional childcare services in the area, and to reinforce this and our commitment, we've already secured an agreement for lease with an operating tenant for the long-term success and sustainability of that centre. We are fully committed to commencing construction immediately upon approval of the development application put forth as we stand here today. This project will not only activate an underutilised site, but will provide an essential service for local families, contributing to the broader Samson community. Finally, we look forward to seeing a favourable outcome in council support in delivering this much needed community asset.
Thank you, Anton. Just to clarify, you represent
The owner.
the owner of the land. Yeah, okay. So I might get Carlo Famiano to speak next, and then I think if elected members have got questions, we can put them to either Anton or Carlo.
Good evening, councillors, mayor and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking as a representative of the applicant and the landowners for the item, the proposed childcare premises on the subject site. Firstly, we're supportive of the recommendation, the officer level recommendation for approval. This application has gone through a fairly long process and has gone through a number of alterations to try and address a whole heap of issues that have come up through the assessment process. Some of the planning issues that we've had to deal with, bushfire issues we've had to deal with, and also we've taken into account comments made during the advertising period from local communities. So we have managed to change the design of the childcare premises. And if you see the original one, it's a total redesign and total relocation of the building itself. As Anton said, this site's been vacant for quite some time. They've gone and explored opportunities for the site for other uses, and they just haven't become fruitful. And the childcare centre is the best option for the site, given that it is a community-based facility and it provides a vital service to the local community. It allows working parents to access services within a walkable catchment. So the use itself does provide a benefit to the local community. On a planning viewpoint, the use itself is discretionary within the zone, and as the officer report demonstrates, the proposal has addressed the objectives of the zone. So it's certainly a use that can be approved by council on this site. As we know, that's been vacant for some time. The building has been designed to provide an active frontage to both streets. It will provide activation, visual interest when viewed from the street, and will certainly be a benefit to the streetscape. We did do a number of trials. I know traffic was raised as an issue from one of the objectors. Traffic studies were undertaken for this site. And they have been evaluated by the city and assessed by the city's engineering department, and they raise no issues with the amount of traffic generated by this use. And just to go back, other uses such as a shopping centre, which obviously is not viable on this site at this point, given the fact that there's availability to a number of commercial centres within the district. A shopping centre would provide greater movements of traffic 7 days a week up until late at night. The childcare centre is a limited hour operation, doesn't operate on weekends. So to be honest, it will have less traffic movements than what a shopping centre or a cafe or a restaurant or a pub or a tavern would have on this site. So just to conclude, hopefully that council sees merit in this application. We are delivering something that will give a benefit to the community, not a negative. And hopefully that the recommendation for approval will be voted positively tonight. Just finally, I'd like to thank the staff of the City of Fremantle that were patient through the process, that we had to do quite a few changes and referrals and so on. Thank you for their efforts. Thank you.
All right, councillors, did we have any questions for Anton or Carlo? Councillor Moughlin?
Thank you. And yeah, not sure whether it's Anton or Carlo best placed to answer. Yeah, you've heard the sentiment from some of the community members tonight, and you've referred to the evaluation of options that you undertook for the site and spoke about the viability or otherwise of those options. Can you explain to us how you evaluated those options and the considerations that you took into account as part of that, and whether the idea of a small cafe as part of the site or something similar was ever considered, and how that was taken into account?
So originally, the original DA scheme that was approved was a apartment complex with a small cafe, not a shop as stated in an earlier statement, but a small cafe. And obviously that approval was predating 2018, 2017, and time has changed since, particularly construction costs and viability of a development of that size and at that scale, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. Where we got to on a position as a childcare is through various feasibility studies, we then determined that that is the most likely outcome to get a development over the line, and that was reinforced by market studies and expressions of interests from local operators within the area who contacted us saying that this site would be a perfect use for them, particularly given the locality and how close it is to the local school there and the recreation centre. So working with them, we then determined that that is a permissible land use for that area and would be benefit to the council or to the local area as well.
Thank you. Councillor Lorver?
Yeah, one of you mentioned that this facility has been proposed with a walkable catchment. I was wondering if you could describe what sort of infrastructure improvements you might be proposing to improve the walkability of people across either Macomb or Patterson, or is there any thing in the plans to improve the walkability of people to actually get there?
Thank you, Councillor. Look, we have reviewed the existing pedestrian path network along the adjoining streets, and they are already at a good level, so they don't need to be updated or upgraded. We are providing direct access from the childcare centre to that pedestrian network so that parents can walk down the existing footpath network and straight into the childcare centre. So we are providing that direct link. It's not all about parents dropping kids off by a car. It's about connecting to the local and existing pedestrian network.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you. I note in the report that you've obviously been through the whole bail process, and that's complicated enough as it is. But the issue of a management plan, and particularly an evacuation plan for such a sensitive use as a childcare centre, what level of consideration has already been given to that? Because my understanding is that it doesn't get dealt with until a later stage.
Oh yeah, look, a lot of this gets dealt with at working drawing stage when we have to piece together the development itself and how we put it together to deal with things like bushfire and noise and all other things such as stormwater and that. So we do deal with that at the building licence stage. It goes through a fairly vigorous process with the consultants. We do have a bushfire consultant on board which has written the reports and have liaised with DFES in regards to the bushfire matter. Obviously, they will be leaned on again to double check everything to make sure that we've complied.
I'm actually referring more, sorry, through the Mayor, to the management plan in relation to not the physicality of the building and the site, but an evacuation process in case of a significant fire where you've got 1 to 5 year olds on a site and their parents anywhere in Perth hearing it on the radio or getting a phone call or whatever it is, and then having to either be asked to evacuate or think that they need to. And I want to know what your evacuation plan thinking looks like.
Not a problem. Sorry for that misunderstanding or misinterpreting the question. Prior to the occupancy of the childcare premises, and I've dealt with a lot of these childcare centres in the past, the operators actually produce a management statement for the running of their own centre. So it will deal with things like emergencies, evacuations, times that parents will drop kids off if they're staggered times, pick-up times and those sort of things. And they actually prepare that, and that is basically the foundation of how they run their business.
Can I
That
follow
addresses
on
the
from
problem.
that question, perhaps just to, and this may be outside your field of knowledge, I assume that then has to get past a regulator in order for them to become a licensed childcare facility?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Councillors? All right, if there's no further questions, I'll let you gentlemen sit down and we'll go back to the alternative motion that's been moved by Councillor Lorva and seconded by Councillor Kamada. So, Councillor Lorva.
Great, thank you. Before we get started, can I just propose a minor amendment to add the letter R somewhere amongst the letters there? Because I have it in my notes to speak to it, but I must not have put it up through there. So thank you. Just one more thing to speak about. I want to thank everyone who came tonight to speak on this item, and also everyone who sent through comments. As councillors, we're considering this use for this location. It is an A land use, so we have to have regard to, all sorts of matters that are set forth out in clause 67 of the regulations. And I'll just start with part R, because part R talks about the possible risk to human health and safety. So we have to have regard that this is potential uses going right across the street from the only bush, natural bush area in Fremantle. And Samson Park has caught on fire before. So it's not necessarily hypothetical if there has been a bushfire there. There has been. Sparks from that bushfire went into a house's air conditioning unit and burnt that house down right across the road. Samson Park is also drying out with climate change. Just this past summer, we saw a whole heap of tuarts on that side of the park near Macomb. They're now brown. You can just go there and count dozens of them. So I think that the bushfire risk is not zero, and having 100 kids directly across the road from, well, it's the only place where we could have a bushfire because it's only a natural bush area in Fremantle, I think is something that we need to definitely have regard to. Another part of the regulations have to deal with traffic, and that's part T. So we have to think about the amount of traffic likely to be generated by the development and the probable effect on traffic flow and safety. So I understand that the staff are okay with the traffic report, but there's 2 roads to this place here. One is Macomb and one is Patterson. Patterson is the as was described earlier by one of the residents, kind of the back door out of Sampson. So everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people coming from Cardinia are going to use this road. And the traffic report that we were given literally has no data for Patterson. You know, it's kind of like saying we're going to do hire someone to do a tree canopy survey, and they say, oh, there's no public data about tree canopy, so I can't report on it. I kind of feel like it's the job of the TIS to find the data, count the cars if they need to. So not having any information about one of the main roads to this place, I think, is something that we need to really consider. You know, there are 4 daycare centers in Hilton, so people coming from that side of the development, or probably they're not going to drive by 4 daycare centers. Most people will be coming from the other side of where Patterson is. The traffic report also, you know, the traffic report that we were given has the entrance coming in and out of Patterson, not off of Macomb as the proposal that we have. So that to me is something that probably should have been relooked at. And then also it incorrectly labels the primary school and the City Run Rec Center as local commercial uses. And we know that they're not. And those are relatively minor things, but it just kind of speaks to me about maybe there should have been a more thorough traffic report for us to consider. And it's not here today. So we really need to have regard for what is before us and what isn't before us in the traffic. Part Y of the regulations means that we have to have regard for any submissions received on the application. And we do have submissions that we've received as a council. You can read in the report that there were 59 responses. 88% of the responses were objecting to it, and 12 were in support. Or 12%, sorry, 8 were in support. We've all received some emails from the community in the past week or so. I have yet to receive an email that has been for it. There's been about, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so. The speakers tonight were all against it. Last night at the Sampson precinct meeting, there was a robust discussion about this proposal, and not one person in that room, and there's probably around a dozen, was supportive of it. So, I mean, I understand that sometimes the more emotive people will take the initiative and say what they have to say. So over the weekend, I personally spent about 10 hours just door knocking around in Sampson, talking to people. And I'd say that the results were largely in line with what was in the report. You know, the folks that supported it, there was maybe around 15% thereabouts. And even of the folks that did support it, the childcare facility, the use there, most people would prefer shops, but they said, look, it's been a vacant lot. And of the folks that were opposing it, I made it very clear to them. I said, look, this is not a choice between a childcare or shops. This is a choice between a childcare or the possibility, maybe, of shops in the future. And even when, you know, that was deadly clear to folks, they still wanted us to object. So we really have to take regard, or have regard, for all the submissions that we received in the report and the communications afterwards. But probably the most important thing in my mind is the future of this suburb of Sampson. You know, clause 67 in parts A, it says that we really need to have regard to any provisions in the scheme and any other local planning schemes. And part M1, it talks about the compatibility of the development with the, quote, desired future character of the setting. So if we look at Frio, our planning scheme, this piece of property where the child care center is being proposed, it's the only local center zone in all of Sampson, the only one. And local center zones, as defined in our scheme, are to provide for the daily and convenience retailing, shops, cafe, office, administration, and residential uses at upper levels for the residential uses. So our local center zones are for retailing, shops, cafe, office, administration, and potentially upper floor residential uses. This use is being considered by us because we have to have regard for all of the other things that I just mentioned and the ones that I'll mention in the future. We have to have regard for everything. But approving the use in this location, it's not like there's another space in Sampson where a retail shop can happen. This is it. And we've heard from the residents that a lot of them desire us to keep that possibility open for them. And so when we're considering the future of Sampson, we also have to have regard for part N, the character of the locality, part V, the potential loss of any community service or benefit, and part X, the impact of the development on the community as a whole. And as we've heard tonight, and as we've seen in the submissions, and as I've personally experienced proactively knocking on doors and the emails that we've received, a lot of people in Sampson want to be able to have shops near where they live. They would love to have the convenience retailing for popping in for a liter of milk, getting a loaf of bread. And, you know, it would have been amazing to see a proposal before us that maybe was half childcare and half, you know, local shop, or half childcare, half cafe, or some sort of mix in there. Because without that, there's no place else in this entire suburb where community can really gather. Community will come and drop their kids off and then head on into work, pick up their kids and go home. But gathering, there is no real space. And that's what this space was zoned for, was for a gathering place, a shop, a cafe, that kind of activity. And I think it's entirely appropriate that we keep it as that kind of activity, because there isn't any other spot. Every single person in Sampson, if they want to get a loaf of bread, if we approve this, will now have to get in their car and drive. So if they want to get a dozen eggs, if they don't have chickens, they're going to have to get in their car and drive across main roads. So I really, really hope that we'll have regard for all those issues that I just raised, and I look forward to hearing other councillors' thoughts on this. But there's quite a few things that we should think about. Are we going to consign these folks that live in Sampson to a future, as long as this building is built and as long as it's being used as a childcare, that we're going to consign everyone that lives there to needing a vehicle to drive to do their daily shopping? So I'll just put that question to you if you're ready to do that.
Okay, Councillor Kamada, you seconded.
I'll jump in. Thank you, Councillor Lorva, and thanks to all those who've taken time to come in tonight to speak. I can appreciate the officers have worked very hard with the applicants to get to this point, but I also sympathise with the community who have overwhelmingly expressed concerns about this proposal, which makes this a pretty tough decision. However, I do feel that the reasons outlined in Councillor Lorva's alternate motion are valid, and that if this goes ahead, I feel that the people that live in that area will be deprived of an opportunity in the future to have a community hub that I think is an essential part of any community. So, yeah, I look forward to hearing what others have to say, but at this point I'm certainly leaning towards supporting this alternate motion.
Okay, councillors. Councillor Moughlin, then Councillor Sullivan.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite interested in this item, you know, obviously for the reasons outlined by the members of the Sampson community and the opportunity, I suppose. A question in the first instance to officers. The report talks to the public submissions that were received, and there is a response in regards to those that raise noise and increased traffic and street parking. There were summarised 2 additional points. One in regards to proximity to the existing childcare, and the second one around the better use of space. There wasn't a comment in the report addressing those pieces of feedback from the community, and I just wanted to understand, are they relevant grounds on which we can consider a decision about this proposal?
Through the chair, when we're looking at a development proposal, you need to be a little bit careful about speculating about what else could potentially go there. You're really looking at the proposal that's in front of you and whether that's compatible with its setting. So the childcare land use, is that appropriate for the local centre zone against those zone objectives? And is it compatible with the surrounding area being the park, the rec centre and the residential zone surrounding it? Other land uses being in close proximity of the same type, there's nothing in those planning rules for that local centre zone to say there can't be an oversupply of a certain land use type. So, for example, Queen Street, there's a couple of banks in a row. There's nothing in the planning rules that prevents that. And quite often land uses do cluster together. There are a number of schools in the area and a lot of residential properties. So it makes sense that this is an attractive area, but it's probably not a reasonable reason on its own to not support this use.
Thank you. Yeah, and just picking up on the point that the manager also made in regards to future use, I'm interested around that as well. And, for fellow councillors, one of those local centre uses, if I understand correctly, could be office space. That doesn't, gel with what the expectations of community is at the moment. And we're not asking for this land to be rezoned. The use is still going to be exactly the same. So, tomorrow, if we do vote this down, and this is to that point, this decision-making process is one that we take very seriously. If this is voted down and the proponents then come back and say, actually, we've got a compelling case for us to build office and administration in this spot, that's not going to be something that necessarily comes to council for approval, as it's an approved use already. So, yeah, we could equally as well end up with dirt on this site for the next 10 years as well, as has been the circumstances that has been in place prior. I also attended the Samson Precinct meeting with Ben last night. I wasn't as keen as him in regards to door knocking over the weekend, but thanks for going out and taking in that pulse of the community at the time. No one has in all of those arguments. There may be one or two that has argued that a childcare centre is not an appropriate use. It has been the argument that an alternative is preferred. And I think the notion that I'm grappling with at the moment is that we have shared or set that local centre which talks to those areas or those uses which are allowed in that local centre. And the decision before us tonight is to exercise discretion or not on one of those land uses. If this was quite different and it was a community piece of land, then I can really understand the arguments about choosing between one or the other and us as a community selecting how or what use we're going to put on that piece of land. But this is a private piece of land. We've set the rules around that use of land, and this proposal's come forward in that regard. We have the rec centre which sits next door at the moment, and maybe as a council, if this proposal does get up and a childcare centre is built, maybe there is something that we can explore in regards to, similar to the Fremantle Leisure Centre, to have a cafe offering there which both faces inward and outwards as part of the rec centre, which may provide a meeting point for the community and address one of those areas of need. We would have to be really sure of and someone who was going to use that site would need to be sure of the commerciality of that. Alana, who first established the cafe in Samson Park, has said that there absolutely is a demand for those cafe type services in Samson. Unfortunately, she went off to follow another dream, which has meant that she no longer does that work, but the option is available there, and I think it would be interesting for us to consider if that's something that we could look at there, as well as, as part of that redevelopment of Samson Park, how we might be able to look at bringing some of those community facilities back. I suppose in summary around my points, it's a really difficult one, but I think what we need to be mindful of is making a robust decision which stacks up. Certainly, if we aren't making the decision on really strong grounds, I can expect that this will find another way to become to be approved. And as part of listening to everyone else, I'm most probably in this instance leaning towards the approval of the officer's recommendation, or not supporting the alternative. But continue to hear the arguments from other elected members.
Thank you, Councillor Mofflin. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I'm sort of somewhere between Councillor Mofflin and Councillor Lorver on this. I see the merits of both arguments that you've just presented to us. But there are two really important things that I think we need to take into consideration. And the first one is the local centre zone and what it actually means and stands for. And its purpose there is to provide for the daily and convenience retailing, shops, cafe, office, administration, and residential uses. Now, while I appreciate that a childcare centre is a convenience in a sense, it is daily usage and the like, it is indicated as a use where we have to grant permission for it. It's not an automatic. That said, there are very few automatic land uses that are permitted in a local centre zone. So it's not in isolation in a sense. I think a lunch bar is one of the ones that's absolutely permitted, but even a shop is not necessarily permitted automatically in a local centre zone. And the reason I sort of like raising this is, but it's very clear that the intent of the local centre zone is to provide that daily and convenience elements for that local community. I also appreciate that the scale of Samson as a residential cell makes that very challenging. But of course, if I was to look at our strategic plan, it would also be clear to me that that challenge is absolutely something that we need to take up, because we want a walkable city. We want those conveniences to be local, even if it's only for the litre of milk. God, I was going to say pint of milk, so thankfully I didn't say that. A litre of milk, and so that to me is, let's not beat around the bush. That's what a local centre is for, right? So there is a part of me that goes, particularly in this one, if it was a local centre that already included some daily and convenience retailing, or a lunch bar, or a cafe that maybe you could get a pint of milk, a litre of milk from, or the like, and we were being asked to consider an additional use in that space, and that was childcare, I'd probably be, from a land use planning perspective, a little bit sympathetic that, yeah, okay, that's not unreasonable. But this is the only piece of land that is a local centre, and this is the only use that's going to go in there. So a part of me goes, well, actually, I don't think that's what the zoning is intended for. It's intended, as it says in the scheme, for to provide that daily and convenience retailing, and shops and cafes and office. The other part of me, where I'm leaning more towards Councillor Lorva's motion, is very much that issue that I raised in questions about evacuation of such a sensitive land use. Now, fire is an increasing part of our landscape, and the notion that one of the most sensitive land uses goes directly opposite a known bushfire risk zone, where you have an environment where it's like the primary school on steroids in terms of parental concern and what would happen in the event of a bushfire, and the potential panic, if you like, that would occur. Now, while the design of the building and the design of the car park and the design of the access has all been reconfigured to suit the BAL part of it, which is the building, the structural, the where you place things, to minimise the risk of fire leaping into the building. When there is a fire in the vicinity of it and there is an evacuation required, all of those changes that have been made now put the primary access for bringing kids in and out of that site directly opposite Samson Park. It's putting them, the evacuation process would almost be unworkable in the sense that you are putting all of the panicking parents straight into the line of fire, and what do you do then? And of course, so that is part of our job. Part of our job is to make sure that the land use is appropriate for the site. And there is a part of the scheme, and I didn't mention it to Councillor Lorver. I did mention part R of it, of his recommendation, but part Q also talks about bushfires. So I would ask in my speaking that Councillor Lorver and the seconder give consideration to including a part Q in there as well, because I think they read in parallel in a sense, because that is the element that actually kind of gets me over the line. I'm not as concerned about the traffic. I mean, I think, childcare centres are always, I've seen lots of them over the years, and they always raise issues of, traffic and access and egress, and, people just don't really want them next to where they are. But in the sense of a planning consideration, I don't think the traffic that gets generated, the impact that this will create is really something that would warrant it being knocked back. If it had been on any other site, or if there had already been shops in that little area, we probably wouldn't be thinking too much about it. If it had been just a bit further away from the bushland, I automatically give it an approval. But in this instance, I can't. I just feel that, that moment when it comes, heaven forbid, will be a real regret for me if we had approved it, and that panic, that evacuation panic that would occur at that site in that configuration, that worries me to the point that I don't think it's the right and appropriate site for a childcare centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Archibald?
Thank you. Could I just ask a question just to clarify the issue of the fire risk? Because I'd quite like to hear a response given some of the comments made. Thank you.
Through the chair, the applicant did do a lot of work to redesign the proposal. The initial application that came through was located in what's called a flame zone. So obviously, being a vulnerable use, as Councillor Sullivan has pointed out, we need to put a lot of rigour around how they are assessed, and ensuring safety is paramount. And the state planning policy and guidelines for that sets that out very, very clearly. In consultation with DFES, so they review these documents, and the applicant provides a document by an accredited bushfire assessor. So there's a lot of steps that they need to go through just to submit the documents. They have redesigned the proposal to set it away from that flame zone and create what's called an asset protection zone between the building and the Samson Rec, which also is a fire source. The roads provide an asset protection zone between the building and Samson Park as well. So it provides physical separation. There's a bushfire management plan that DFES have also reviewed, and they are satisfied that it sets out everything in accordance with the regulations, which ultimately is what we have to measure the bushfire risk. And DFES and officers are satisfied that they've met the requirements in those state planning policies for bushfire risk for the land use.
Councillor Archibald, does that help you?
Yes, thank you. I'll speak in a moment. I'll allow Councillor Williamson-Wong to go ahead.
Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thanks. Just a clarifying question quickly. When these plans and management plans go to DFES, are they going with the context that it's a vulnerable use as a childcare centre, or is it a general application that these organisations see?
Through the chair, no, it's specific. So they have to indicate exactly what land use is. DFES get all the documentation that's lodged with the DA, so they're reviewing it in the context of this proposal being a childcare centre.
All right. Well, I might speak now if Councillors Archibald and Williamson-Wong are comfortable with the answers they've received. I am leaning away from supporting Councillor Lorver's alternative motion. Look, I remember when Samson had the shops there and the pizza place, and as a Hilton resident, I remember coming over and using what were great facilities. But they're not there now. And it seems to me that the likelihood of them ever being there again gets increasingly lower, and it's not through anything other than how market forces are evolving. And I think what you see through the suburbs more generally is those local shops that we all remember, and I used to work in the local deli and all that. Unless they're on a main thoroughfare, they're just that the local catchment is not enough for them to survive, and it's happened throughout suburban Perth. So I'd love to think we live in a world where that's changing, but I can't see how, particularly with the dominance of the car and the ability to convenience shop outside business hours and all of those things that people do, how those local centres really continue to be viable going forward. What is viable is childcare, and so I had a look at the demographics of Samson, and the latest ABS stats are from 2021. So this is pre the COVID baby boom, which I think was a 7% increase in births. 543 families were living in Samson in 2021 with an average of 1.8 kids each. 104 kids were between the ages of 0 and 4 in Samson. And in 205 of those families, both parents were working either part-time or full-time. There's no childcare centres in Samson, so I looked more broadly in... There was a family daycare at one stage, I think, but I'm not sure if that's still going. I looked more broadly within 6163. Now, if your baby's very young, there is some availability, maybe 1 or 2 days a week within 6163, the postcode, so the whole Hammy Hill, Hilton, the whole bit. If your child is aged 2 years old, and this is the prime time where parents return to work and, want to get their children into childcare, there's an average of 0.2 days available. So less than a day of childcare is available in that age group in 6163. So these are parents who are driving in their cars, probably quite often in the opposite direction to where they work, through their suburb, out of their postcode to find childcare. And that's not great. We're in a record low unemployment situation. We've got people struggling with cost of living, and what you do when you're struggling with cost of living is you try and increase your working hours. But if you can only get minimal childcare, less than a day, and I mean childcares don't even offer that, you need a full day to be able to enrol your child, you're not going to be able to participate in the workforce as fully as you might want to. So that's a problem. So I looked online, so I was like, well, what are parents doing about this? My child's 14, I'm kind of out of the zone of this now. They are enrolling their children well before they're even born. That, 12-week scan, that's the recommended time to enrol your child in childcare, put them on the wait list. So there is a broader social issue here, and, there's no either or. There's a proposal for a childcare in front of us, but I actually see huge community benefit in having a childcare in Samson. I live within 200 metres of 2 childcare facilities in Hilton, and it's great for people in Hilton. And you know what? People are walking to the childcares and having a chat on the way in and on the way out. The vicinity to the primary school is great because the dreaded double drop-off is not so much of an issue. You can stop the car once and walk the kids to where they need to go if you are driving. So I feel really uncomfortable with the idea that we say, no, people in Samson shouldn't have access to childcare within their local area, or that we present it as an either-or scenario. It's a proposal for childcare that's in front of us. Samson Rec is a really interesting idea. I think I had the same sort of thinking as Councillor Mofflin did on that. If what we're seeking is community benefit that provides, a coming together place, then a community asset like the Samson Rec Centre is actually a perfect place to try and provide that. And it's not as subject to market forces as privately owned land. So I think that is an option to really explore what Samson Rec could be doing more of or better in the community, and how it serves that community coming together at the point. And I think what's interesting is looking at, the survival of the cafe in Hilton that's near the PCYC and the Hilton Early Learning Centre and the Mealinga childcare is because it's got all of these feeders right next to it. So actually having things like childcare, primary school, rec centres, all sort of agglomerating in the same place does feed the ability for somebody to run a viable business there. Just close on saying that childcare is still primarily a feminist issue, and this is one of the key issues for women returning to work. It contributes to the gender pay gap. If after 1 year you're unable to find childcare for your children, women are likely to not return to work after their maternity leave, or sufficient childcare, more than, because most employers don't go, that's great, we'll have you back for 0.2 of a day of a week. So it's a feminist issue. Women do still primarily provide the majority of childcaring in the home. And I think it's an equity of access issue as well. It shouldn't be that you have to drive significant distances to be able to have childcare services. So I won't be supporting the alternative motion, and I will support the officer's recommendation if I get the opportunity to do so. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I've got a few kind of notes jotted down, but I wanted to start by saying I'm appreciating how we're having a very robust discussion about a planning issue tonight, as someone who is interested in these things. I think for me, echoing Councillor Sullivan, the traffic is of a lesser concern. I think any development on this site is going to generate some traffic, and the report has clearly indicated that, although people are contending it, it has indicated that it's on the lesser side of impact. Following on from Mayor Fitzharding, and I guess to clarify in my head, we aren't able to consider the past use of this site or prospective applications that may come through. Yes, we're looking at the local centre zone through the local planning scheme, which sets out that it will provide for the daily and convenience retailing, but it also sets out that whatever application comes through should serve the local community. And we're only able to look at the application that's in front of us. So we're basically being asked whether a childcare facility meets that, whether it serves the local community. And I think on the flip side, which Mayor Fitzharding pointed out, is if we were to vote this application down, then we're saying that people in Samson shouldn't have access to childcare that they can walk to. Because that's what the application is in front of us. The application is for childcare or for that land to sit vacant currently. That's the decision. I've been very interested in the points raised, and I appreciate that, you know, childcare centre isn't listed specifically as a use under the local centre zone definition, but I am feeling more supportive of the officer recommendation because I think this is a proposal that will serve the community, and you know, it's been tested through market forces that this is something that's needed, and I'm not confident that voting it down or refusing it as an alternative motion does, just because of a potential that people would like shops is you know, enough to say that we should refuse it. And I think also interesting to think that it could be, you know, an application for a set of offices that are there, which I feel would serve much less of a community benefit than a childcare facility on that site. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. Look, I've really appreciated the comments that have been made around the table, but in particular, I feel that some of the concern from the residents is more based around wanting convenience, a convenience store within their suburb, and I just sort of feel that the viability of convenience stores these days is small. It does still require pretty reasonable traffic flow, a number of people going there. There aren't very many left anymore. Even for a cafe to survive there during the week, it would struggle, I think. And sometimes these things can be supplied mobilely. Down in Manning Park, I know that they have caravan that comes in during the week, and they can have coffee and that sort of thing happening. So when I look at the various issues surrounding it, I don't believe traffic is excessive, because I think you would need at least that amount of traffic to make a cafe or a convenience store viable. I think that having a childcare centre close to the school is ideal. That has been mentioned already tonight. And I do feel, as the Mayor has said, that it is a very useful and viable addition to put in a suburb that is entirely residential, other than the school and a couple of other things. And I just feel that, sadly, that the day of the small local centre is fast disappearing. The only thing, as Councillor Sullivan said, that makes me think twice about this is the issue of fire. But I also feel that we do have a process in our planning scheme and in the state planning system that deals with these issues. And, you know, if the building has been designed so that it is ameliorating the impact of fire, there is good road access in and out through this area. It is not a vast park. It is a very beautiful park, but it is not a vast park. And so I am now of the view that I feel that that issue would be best dealt with by the people who deal with fire issues and fire ratings and requirements that go with planning applications. So overall, while I do respect the residents' comments about this, I feel that we are not here to decide between a shop that provides milk and bread or a cafe that gives them a cup of coffee, where these things may never happen. The site's been vacant, I believe, since 2017. It's been demolished. So it's already, you know, 7 years down the track, and nothing has happened. And I feel that is as detrimental to the local area, you know, than having the vacant site. So I feel in the end that the childcare centre would be a great addition to the suburb. I'm sure that there'd be young parents out there who would absolutely love having the ability to drop off a school-aged child and a preschool or, you know, childcare-aged child just down the road without having to drive in the car and all those sorts of things. So based on all of that, and as I said, appreciating the valuable comments that have been made, I do feel that the application, as the officers have recommended, does have merit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson. I think you've just turned your microphone off again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to query in the proposal is inconsistent with, and the motion covers pretty well all of the items in clause 67A. I noticed it mentions V and X. Could somebody explain to me what what the provisions are in clause 67A on clause 67? What the provisions of the V and the X are?
Yeah, could you? No, you answer that. And Councillor Lawver's got his hand up to close, I think.
I was just saying it's Councillor Lawver's motion that Councillor Thompson's referring to,
Yeah.
so he may have a response, but I'm happy to provide a brief explanation.
Councillor Thompson, were you looking for an officer response to that, or?
No, yes, I was, because obviously it's mentioned in the recommendation, but I can't see it in the report.
Through the chair, clause 67A in the regulations is really, it's quite a long list. It goes into the alphabet a couple of times. It basically covers a broad range of items that you should consider in any planning assessment. So Councillor Lawver has picked out the ones that he believes are integral to this one and why it shouldn't be supported, which I believe he spoke to a little earlier. So it was, was it V and X you were querying in particular? So clause V is the potential loss of any community service or benefit resulting from the development other than potential loss that may result from economic competition between new and existing businesses. And X, the impact of the development on the community as a whole, notwithstanding the impact of the development on particular individuals.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, did you wish to speak on the item at all? All right, I'll go to Councillor Lorver to close, and I'll just remind Councillor Lorver that Councillor Sullivan asked if he would add Q to that list of alphabet soup on the screen.
I was going to start with, I'm fine with adding Q as a minor amendment if the seconder is okay with that. Yeah. Great.
Right, back to you to close.
All right, wow. Whew. Well, that was pretty interesting. Thanks everyone for your comments on this. And I just want to point out that there's the supporters of the proposal and the ones that I spoke to, they were not all young families. They were a mix of demographics. There were old people with no kids, older couples with children that are grown up, and the people that I've spoken with who oppose this, as referenced here tonight, are not all old people that don't want kids in their backyard. There's it's to say that the demographics of an area, because there's young families there, would be supporting this, I think is erroneous, because there is a broad range of views on this all across the demographic spectrum. Also clarify another thing. Samson does have access to childcare right now. We talked about it. It's currently right next door to this proposal. It's at the rec center. And also, I just want to remind elected members, a childcare can be granted as an A use anywhere in the residential zone. Any house in Samson can be a childcare, but any house cannot be granted an A use as a town center. So there is a little bit of difference here. I just wanted to clarify that. So if a childcare wanted to get built, they could get built anywhere in Samson as an A use, not just in this location. But we cannot grant a use for shops and retail as a local center zone where there is residential right now. So just to reiterate that. So there is a bit of a understanding amongst the people that this is not an either or decision, childcare or shops. This is about the desired future character of a community where people live. And it's very clear to me from the feedback that we've received, and the desired future character is part M up there that we need to take into account. And granting this childcare at this one specific property and not in a residential area of Samson or anywhere else within the suburb means that we are locking in this use for the life of this building. That we're, in a sense, would be saying, yeah, we want Frio to be a walkable city, except in Samson. Yeah, our strategic community plan talks about being a livable city, but not in Samson. Allowing this use makes the possibility of actually having a community hub impossible, as long as this building is used as a childcare. So I understand it's a tough decision, but I think for me, it's pretty clear, we do have to consider all these different elements when granting this discretionary use for this specific site. And if we choose to do that, we cannot grant a discretionary use to make Samson a walkable city or a livable city. We're saying, great, we're fine with that. So it'll be a decision that we all have to make. Obviously I put this forward because I think that having a community, the ability for a community to get together would be great. But maybe there are other people that feel a different way. So I guess in summary, yes, we know that this isn't an either-or decision. This is about a discretionary use that can be granted literally anywhere else in the suburb, but by granting it in this specific spot, we are consigning these folks to never having the possibility, well, as long as the building is used for its intended purpose, they won't have the possibility of having a livable and walkable neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. So, councillors, we're voting on the alternative motion as on the screen. All those in favour of the alternative motion? So, councillors Kamada, Lorver and Sullivan. And all those against? Councillors Archibald, Mofflin, myself, Williamson, Wong and Thompson. So that's lost. So we'll return to the officer recommendation, which is now on the screen. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Archibald to move and a seconder, Councillor Thompson. Any more? I'm assuming there wouldn't be much more debate on that, although there can be. Was there no? Okay, that's in the next item. Yeah, all right, so we will vote on what's on the screen now. All those in favour? Councillors Thompson, Williamson, Wong, myself, Mofflin, Kamada, Archibald Lorva. In favour, and against, Councillor Sullivan. All right, so that's carried. Okay, that was quite a long item. Thank you for staying with us for it. We're now going to move to the Montreal Street item, the Fremantle Public Golf Course redevelopment. So I've got a couple of speakers on that. I've got Scott Gunson listed to speak on that. And I don't know if I have any other speakers in the gallery, but we'll kick off with you, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors and city officers. I'm Scott Gunson. I'm the proponent for the Launchpad Golf. I'm speaking in relation to the Launchpad Golf proposal at the Fremantle Public Golf Course on the agenda tonight. I'm pleased to receive the officer's recommendation for council to recommend approval of the application to the WAPC. I'd like to thank the city's officers from various departments for their engagement and collaboration throughout the assessment process. Following council's adoption of the business case in February 2024, we worked closely with the city and the consultant team to prepare a development application and all the accompanying materials. As you can see in the agenda report, we have comprehensively considered and addressed a range of matters during the development application process and acted on feedback where practical. I'm committed to working with the city to integrate our development with the adjacent Burrinborough Park and the city's future plans, which are very exciting plans in this area. Our venue, once opened, will be open to the public, and I hope it will be very well received by the local community. Not just inside the venue, but also in the adjacent cafe kiosk, which we have placed in the southern end of the venue. We look forward to progressing this development and the upgrade to Burrinborough Park with the city, and respectfully ask council to support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, did you have any questions for Scott on this item? Nope. All right. Well, we'll get into the debate then. Thank you. All right. Do we have a mover for this approval? Councillor Archibald, and a seconder, Councillor Williamson Wong. Would you like to open for us, Councillor Archibald?
Thank you. I don't really wish to say a huge amount. We all understand that this is part of a response to our business plan, and that we've already all agreed that we would entertain a golf facility being on this site. I did talk about this with my colleagues the other night, because at that point I hadn't seen a plan that was altered to address the Burrinborough Park area. It is something that is very important. It was discussed back in the day when we put the business plan together, that not only would it add to the clientele for the cafe that's going to be in this building, but it would also mean that the local community, and there are a number of people who visit there, people, mothers with children and fathers with children and all that sort of thing, that it would be great to have a sort of facility that they can also share in and enjoy a cup of coffee and all those sorts of things. So the Manager of Governance has drafted up just a small note, which I would like to move or have asked to have added. It's really just saying that the detailed design for the interface between the kiosk and Boo Park is considered, because we will obviously be looking at doing work on the Burrinborough Park side. It would be good to ensure we have as good a connection between the building and the park as possible, so that people do feel that it's open for business, it's welcoming, and there's a place for people to go and sit and have a coffee. So it's not really changing anything, and I believe, my understanding, and I've seen plans to this effect, that the designer's already looking at accommodating that. So it's really just a note, not asking for a change to the latest design. So I'll just move that amendment.
Sure. Do we have a seconder for that one? Councillor Kamada. All right. Any discussion on that amendment? No, I'll put it to a vote then. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Anything
Thank you.
further?
I think really I look forward to seeing the project commence in whatever timeframe it will and be delivered. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of people very pleased to see that happen at that site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Archibald. Councillor Lorber, you've also got an amendment, I think.
Yeah, I was hoping to move that now, please.
Excellent. That's on the screen there. Do we have a second of that one? Councillor Thompson, did you wish to speak to that one?
It's pretty self-explanatory. If there's comments, I'll reply in closing.
All right. Any speakers on that one? No. Oh, Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I just wanted to just make sure when we talk about replacement trees, we're not talking about mature trees. You're just essentially seeking 2 trees that will be small, trees the size that we would plant as street tree planting.
Yeah, I think that trees that could grow to be large would be great, but they don't need to be large. Yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Moughlin.
Yeah, just as I suppose a question or a comment for Councillor Lorber, and not being au fait entirely with the number of trees that are proposed to be removed or otherwise, do you want it as a minimum of 2 trees replacement, or such that there could be more, or are you happy with 2? And that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I take a minimum accept it as a minor amendment, because the whole point is that we need to grow our urban canopy. So, yeah, if there's trees being removed, we need to put more in the ground. Yeah.
Seconder, happy with that? That's Doug. Yep. All right. We've improved that, and I put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. We also have an amendment proposed by the officers, and I've got an advice note amendment. So the officers' amendment is on the screen. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Don't know if there's any discussion or questions on that. No. Okay, so I'll put that one to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. And then I wish to add an advice note, and I appreciate that the proponent is not necessarily going to be the operator of the cafe, but given the sensitive environment of Boo Park, I was hoping to include an encouragement at least for plastic-free operations at the kiosk. So have I got anyone who would like to second that for me? Councillor Archibald. And really one of the key examples for this is, and there are others in the city of Fremantle, but the very small Inner Bean cafe that operates down at the North Fremantle foreshore, incredibly popular place, dog walkers and families and everyone down there, and they don't use one disposable item. So it's entirely possible. For them, it requires them going and doing commercial kitchen washing up somewhere after the cafe closes each day, but given that there is a commercial kitchen or catering kitchen in the facility, it should be a very easy proposition for an operator. And I think given Boo Park and the lake and everything else, the last thing we want to see is an increase in any kind of disposable items making their way into that environment. So put that one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, so we've had a bunch of amendments. Does anyone wish to speak on the item as now amended? Councillor Lorber.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Councillor Archibald for getting that note in there, because I think the integration with Boo Park is absolutely critical for this. I mean, we've basically given the proponent, public land to make that happen, and we're spending millions of dollars to help facilitate that. So anything we can do to make that better, I'm all for. I do find it interesting that this is a kind of a cafe slash bar slash kind of a place to go eat, and the traffic report only counts in 409 daily trips. The proposal that we just supported for a daycare center was 452 trips per day. So I'm curious how the commerciality, kind of those two things might stack up, but that's just a question, kind of not for any serious answer. I was one of the few people that I initially voted against this because I didn't believe it was a good value for ratepayers. I'm still of that view, but I'm also going to be probably one of the first people that goes there to use it, and I'll freely admit that. I don't think it's necessarily was a good value, but that's not what we're deciding today. We're deciding the planning, our comments to the Western Australia Planning Commission on this one. So I'll be supporting this going forward as it is amended, and look forward to it.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. Wanted to thank councillors and yourself, Mayor, for the amendments and the advice note. I just wanted to note, while the applicants are here, that I really echo the importance of the advice note within the recommendation that any proposal of Aboriginal artwork should follow the guidance of the city's engagement, the public art coordinator, to ensure that there's proper engagement on that item. Noting the response in the report doesn't necessarily ensure commitment from yourselves, but I wanted to note that I think it's important and that I'm very appreciative that that advice note is in there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think this one's probably ready to go to a vote. So all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for waiting. All right. So we've got the Planning Information Report, Scheme Amendment 88, Local Planning Policies, and a couple of other ones. Do people want to speak on items C3, 4 and 5? Councillor Lorver, on which item? Okay, so we'll do them one at a time. So do I have a mover for the Planning Information Report? Councillor Mofflin, seconded by Councillor Archibald. Is there any discussion on that report? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Do I have a mover for the Scheme Amendment 88, short-term rental? Councillor Lorver, seconded by Councillor Archibald. Speakers on that one?
Just a quick question on this. I was just wondering if staff could give us just a brief, I know it's written in there, but just for anyone that might be paying attention online, just a brief kind of summary of how these changes are going to impact someone who currently operates an unhosted Airbnb or unhosted short stay accommodation, and how that might differ from somebody who might in the future purchase a property and want it to be an unhosted short stay accommodation. Just if there is any difference between that.
Sure, I'll go to the director on that one.
Thank you, and through the Mayor. Probably not a lot of difference, except that there will be, the registration will be with state government. At the moment, we have our own policy where we try and monitor this. That's now to cease since the beginning of January. So state government will do a register, and for the unhosted accommodation, it will require a planning approval if it's over 90 days of being used for rental.
Thank you. All right, anything further on that one? All right, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. And that takes us to the local planning policies. Do I have a move for that one? Councillor Archibald, seconder, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Did we have any debate on that one?
I've got a question. It's about number F there, and it's just, first of all, I want to thank staff for doing all this work. I'm a huge fan of making policies and even laws as easy to read and understand as possible. So, you know, the average Joe can pick up a document, read it, and know precisely what it means. So I think this work is incredibly important. I mean, getting rid of the ones that we no longer need is equally as important. Now, the cash in lieu of car parking policy, I completely understand why that was brought into this discussion, but I just wonder, is there a view from staff on whether if we wanted to potentially have a cash in lieu car parking policy that covered the whole city, instead of just the CBD, as I understand that this current policy covers, would it be of the view of the staff that we should keep this one and work on amending it later, or potentially, if council is so inclined to consider a cash in lieu for car parking in a more broad sense, just to draft a new policy altogether?
I'll go to the director on that one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Our advice would be to let this one be revoked. It's not fit for purpose. In fact, we can't even administer it because we need a parking plan approved by the WAPC to actually enable it. So our hands are tied at the moment. So the first thing we would need to do is to get a parking plan together. I think the suggestion that maybe a future one for the whole city is a very interesting idea. I think we should look at that after we've done the city plan and we've started embarking on a scheme review to see whether or not it should be something that would have a benefit across the whole city, or something which we may want to hone in on an area where we think there may be some intense development which would actually make such policy useful. So would certainly take that one away and be part of future thinking.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion on that, I will... Councillor Kamara?
Yeah, very quick. So
Yeah.
just to follow up. So what you're saying is once we complete this review down the track, you would bring something forward for us to consider?
Through the chair, that's not recorded in this recommendation. I'm happy to take that away and put that on the list of policy and scheme reviews that we will be going through to see what that value is. If you wanted to add an extra recommendation to call for that, that presumably could be added, but...
Yeah, I'm happy to ask for that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm happy to have that added if that's, yeah, if you think that's worthwhile, or if others do.
Perhaps I'll just speak a little bit on the item. I mean, I think one of the things that's really positive about what officers are doing here is really reducing the number of policies that we have in place that adds to the confusion of anyone trying to do anything in the city. And we know, you know, people's awareness of these things can be somewhat low. And then really deciding what those key things are that we want to support the things in us, you know, and what we want the scheme and the policies to define that is unique and different about Fremantle. So, you know, for me, doing this pulling back process is very positive because it then allows us this blank slate on which to work and say, what are those key things? And I mean, interface with heritage buildings is one that continually comes up in a planning discussion. You know, parking, those kind of things, you know, number of car bays. You know, we can specifically define those in response to things like the city plan. So, you know, I wonder about the idea of making those decisions now before the city plan has actually come to us for consideration. Anyway, I'll leave it to you as to whether you want to add put in an amendment or something at this point, but you know, at this stage, I'd probably say just delete it from number 2 there if you think we still need it. But I would hope that we'd be defining that more clearly off the back of the city plan. Councillor Lorver, you've got your...
Yeah, I would be supportive of something like this because I could really see it benefiting the city, because we oftentimes get a lot of applications where we waive the parking requirements and all, you know, it's 1 or 2 here, maybe 5 there or whatever. And starting, if the cash in lieu extended, you know, more broadly across the city, that could actually be put into a strategic parking fund that then down the future we could do the other part of our strategic parking plan, which is build those car parks on the periphery. So, you know, we could actually start collecting some cash to work towards that. And, you know, I think for me, I would be very open to considering that in the future and see what form it might come back to us, because we do want a livable city. We want a place where, you know, not every parking bay is necessarily sacred, but if we are granting those discretions, a small contribution towards achieving the other end of our parking strategy, I think would be entirely appropriate. So I'm fine with deleting what we have currently, because it does seem to be bespoke for the CBD only, and I can understand the reasons for that, but I think a more broad view and look at this as a tool for us to achieve our goals is entirely warranted.
All right, so you've got two options there, Councillor Kamada, delete F or 5 as is being drafted at the moment on the screen.
Yeah, look, I'm comfortable to put that up, and if it's supported, it's supported. And one of the reasons being is that when I read the report, the fact that city officers are investigating this area, I just felt, and in light of, and it's something that I was thinking of, is future parking and having a fund that could perhaps go towards, this peripheral parking that we've talked about for the future. So it's just having that mindset, I suppose, more than anything else. So yeah, I'm happy to put that forward.
All right, I assume Councillor Lorver would be seconding that. Councillor Thompson on the amendment?
Yeah, look, I'm easy on the amendment, but I just think that it's like, my memory is when we had the cash in lieu parking policy before, and Councillor Sullivan may remember this. We were told by whichever was the relevant state government agency that we actually had, there was conditions under which we could spend it, and those conditions in fact turned out that we hardly ever spent any of the cash in lieu. So to be honest, I think it's probably a waste of time reviewing it, but if council wants that, well.
Rightio. I would be supportive of that amendment if it had something referencing following the city plan, because I think it is really important that it's in the context of our broader strategic planning framework. So I don't know if the mover and seconder would agree to put those words in there.
Yeah, very comfortable with that, and it's, the intention is to be on the, working together and being on the same page.
Yeah, all right, I'm just looking at the words. As part of the broader planning process review following the city plan it's clunky, but it'll do. Yeah, it works. I think what might be clearer is if you just remove following adoption of the city plan to the end for further consideration following the adoption of the city plan. Cool. Are you, the mover and seconder, both comfortable with that? Yep, okay. All right, and city plan of the capital, thank you. All right, so anything further on the amendment, or can I put it to a vote? Can I put it to a vote? All those in favour? And that's unanimous. So back to the item as amended. Is there any further discussion? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. All right. We're going to the loos. The item sole source supply for Collier Market Street toilets. Moved by Councillor Moughlin, seconder Councillor Williamson Wong. It's an item on toilets. Surely we have speakers. We're a local government, guys.
Don't tempt me.
Oh,
Councillor Williamson Wong.
just to say that it's exciting to see this moving forward. So happy to see it early in 2025.
Yeah, I'm going to add my enthusiasm to that. This is long needed. We have not had 24/7 toilets in the city. It's all very well for people to complain about, people doing things in public places that are unpleasant, but if we do not provide 24/7 toilets, then what choices do people have? Exeloos, I don't love them. I don't know anyone who loves an Exeloo and thinks, wow, that's, my desired situation. But they are incredibly robust, and I think there's been a lot of demonstration that they are really well used where they are provided. So it's a dignity issue, it's a sanitation issue, and it's long overdue. So I really appreciate the acceleration of this by the Infrastructure Department, who I think have heard the call loud and clear, and are doing this as quickly as is possible amongst the ageing infrastructure of Fremantle, which we know always provides challenges for these kind of things. So good news on loos. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. All right. That brings us to the final report of the night, the statutory report on elected member superannuation contributions. Do I have a move for that? Councillor Williamson-Wong, seconded by Councillor Archibald. Discussion on this item. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thanks. Look at me with so much excitement at the end of this agenda. No, I just think it's really great to see this coming forward. Of course, this is state regulation, following state regulation changes, but I mean, when I talk to people about my job, they often, you know, and then we talk about, they say, do you get paid? And I say, yeah, I do get paid. Then I say, but I don't get paid super. And everyone goes, oh, that's crazy. How is that even allowed? So as we know, it is obviously allowed, but this is going to change that. And I mean, part of the reason that I got into council and what I am always looking to champion is making sure that there are diverse ranges of voices in decision-making rooms. And previously, obviously, the remuneration of councillors has changed a lot dramatically, even in the last, you know, few decades, from not being paid at all to having an allowance. But this goes a step further and it will allow, hopefully, a little bit more accessibility to this role, which I think is really important. So, very excited.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Councillor Lorber.
Yeah, I just want to share my enthusiasm for this one as well, because it is kind of a barrier for some folks to consider, you know, stepping up and representing their community. You know, no one gets into being elected members so we can buy our third vacation home, finance the super yacht, or that's not why we're here. But it does take a lot of time, as we all know. And if we're going to encourage, like as Councillor Wong said, diverse representation, if you look at the backside of our annual report, you know, it has all our allowances on there and how much we all get remunerated. But as I explained to folks, if you have a full-time job, you might get to take your tax off of that. It's 36%. And if you want to hope to retire someday, then you got to put your superannuation contribution, take that off of that. And when you start to do those deductions, it really whittles down. So hopefully this will encourage more people to take spending the time away from their families, spending the time away from their home, and giving back to their community a more serious thought. And I look forward to seeing how that plays out.
Councillor Mofflin.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll echo the sentiments from Councillor Williamson-Wong and Lorver, but also add in there, as our numbers of elected members decrease, the opportunities for diverse representation are also challenged, and anything such as this change to introduce superannuation, which may make a person's decision to run for local government or support them to make that decision. I'm fully supportive of it, and I look forward to a future Fremantle Council being more representative of our community than it is today.
Thanks, Councillor Mofflin. I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. All right, that brings us to the end of the agenda. There are no late items of which notice has been given, etc. So I will declare the meeting closed at 7:48 p.m. Thank you.